So here we are at Tuesdays at 2 on Wednesday.
At 2:02.
At 2:02. Well, funny thing happened. Well, it wasn't real funny. Monday, somehow the dog got a hold of a chicken bone, trying to, snatch up some of the scraps from our wonderful barbecue. And I didn't know it until the middle of the night when he couldn't sleep, and he whined and he paced and many other things. And then I was up all night, and then I had to go to the vets. And of course, we have to whole protocol at the vets where you have to stay in the car. They come out and get the dog. Anyways, I think he's on the mend, so all is well. But that was a terrible night of no sleep. And if I know anything about myself, I don't work well on no sleep. I'm just not one of those people who can just rally. So I just decided to postpone till today. So I'm glad you're here. And I'm sorry for those people who maybe had something scheduled today. But as you know, the video stays here, so they'll be able to catch up. And I'm answering any questions by email. And I'm also enjoying the photographs that people are sending with their questions. And once again, I am behind on answering all of those, but I will tell you, you're doing a fabulous job. Mary Jackson just sent me, she was having a little trouble. She got her front spot on right away. And as far as I'm concerned, right away, she might have had to make, I think she said she did have to fiddle and maybe make more than one. But she had some questions about the back, and as I was contemplating what to tell her to do, she figured it out herself. And it looks beautiful. So I'm really thrilled because once that penny drops, or that light bulb goes off, you can see, you can understand where to make the adjustments in or out and get that fit where for so many years it's been a mystery. And again, a lot of us just kept searching for that one pattern line or that specific pattern that would actually fit our body without any adjustments. And as you have no doubt ascertained by now, that pattern doesn't exist. So we all are going to have to make some adjustments one way or the other. Height, width, length, shape, bust point. There's just so many areas where you want to get a nice fit. And when we get done with the sloper, you will have the opportunity to either take this a step further, like using the pattern drafting methods that Connie has done a beautiful job with the textbooks on. You could use a pattern drafting textbook and continue on with your sloper and add sleeves, collars, turn it into a dress. You can go all kinds of places with it. And if that sounds exciting to you, you're going to have a lot of fun. If it sounds like a nightmare and you don't want to do that, that's okay too, because then you can use the sloper to superimpose over commercial patterns and make the proper adjustments so that you know it'll fit. So that's what we've been doing here for the last couple of months. Well, more than a couple of months.
I haven't been doing anything here for the last couple of months.
She never does. She just sits there. But we did the knit sloper.
So glad I came back.
We did the knit sloper.
I put on pants for this.
So she says. And where was I? Oh, we did the knit sloper. So if anybody missed that, go back and check that one out. The knit, I like starting with the knit as a fitting sloper, the whole concept, because knit takes less adjustments. So it gets you started, kind of gets your appetite wet. And then we're moving into more structured garments with more fitting. And of course, most of us make both. We like the knits, but there are times when we want to make a fitted jacket or something with a little more structure to it. So that's where we're at right now.
Starting with the knit gives you a little bit, like eases you into the education, and then you have a little bit better idea of what you're doing when you start to learn more going to the blouse.
Yeah. So So,
But some people like to jump in feet first, and that's fine too.
I have done it.
Every
I've
time.
done it. Not every time. I think by now I have learned to start. It's just like when I meet someone and they're said, well, I want to sew. Okay, what would you like to make? Oh, I want to make my wedding dress. It's like I walk away. I'm just like, and you know what? There are people who have done it and been very successful at it. God bless them, but it's a really steep learning curve if you're starting with a couture garment for your first project. So anyway, but I bet a few of you did that as well. And that's okay. It's just not recommended for everybody. Why don't we just say it that way, right? So if you want to follow this series and you'd like to actually participate and get a fitted muslin, it doesn't matter if you're doing it right now at the exact same time we're doing it or months or years from now, because we're going to keep this available for you. And maybe you get away from it, your body changes, you want to come back, pick up a few of the tips that you might have forgotten, you'll be able to do that. So, but what I recommend as you're following along is not to necessarily try to stay exactly where we're at. It's almost better to be a week or two behind us so that you have an opportunity to re-watch this class even 1 or 2 or 3 times to pick up the tips. And of course you can fast forward through the areas that you don't need extra information. But anyway, watch it more than once and start the process. And then if you get to a sticking spot and it just isn't working, that's when you send me photographs. And I need a front, a back, and a side view. I need very good lighting, no shadows. The best way to do that is mid-morning or mid-afternoon outdoors. And I've been getting really good pictures now, so I can really help you if there is. But most people have just been doing a great job. I'm really pleased. I'm proud of you. I really am. So I'm working with 1301, CS 1301, which is the shoulder princess seam sloper block. And that pattern is by Connie Crawford.
So I'm making sure I held the right one up. Yes, I know it's backwards. Just giving you an idea of what it looks like. And then 1301 is for sizes 8 through 20. That's everything, right?
No.
Right.
1301, 8 through 20, and then there's 2 options of bust cup sizes. And then there is also the plus size. If you're in the plus size range, you don't have to pick the bust cup size. But if you're in the up to 20 size, then you will choose your bust cup. And we do go all the way to HI. So we go all the way to I for a bust cup size. So you'll be able to definitely get a fitting sloper no matter your body shape. There's also a third sloper for the bodice. What would I do? 1302. 1302 is the same thing. The only difference is the princess seam comes from the Armscye, comes from about the middle of the Armscye and then goes across the apex. And if that's a more pleasing look for you, by all means use it. It's going to be the same process as what we're doing here. The third pattern, that if you bought the kit 3, the number 3 size kit, you got all 3 patterns, and the third one you got was 1201. And 1201 does not have princess seams. And there's plenty of times when you're making a blouse or a jacket or any type of bodice that doesn't have princess seams. So that's also a good one to do. It's the same concept as this one, a lot of the same. It's just that it doesn't. It has a fisheye dart in the front and the back as opposed to the seam all the way down, and then it'll have shoulder darts. Now, that fisheye dart is definitely optional. And if you have a body type that, let's say it's a apple body type, so you're very round under the bust, you probably are less likely to need that princess seam or that from below the bust or that fisheye dart. So you could eliminate it. It can be made a little bit smaller as well if you need to. But a lot of body types, I don't use the fisheye dart below because it's just, I don't need it. So know that about your body type so you get the right shape and concept. But the 1201 is in your kit for those who bought the kit number 3. You're leaving, Jess?
Yeah, I've had enough. It was rough. A lot of work.
So, had you seen any questions yet? I don't know.
No, they want to know why you're being mean to me already.
She deserves it. I'm just glad she came back. I feel washed out. Hurry up. The light changes when there's not 2 of us.
Okay. I said I was just a figment of your imagination.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so we are ready to move forward from where you left off last week then.
Yes.
Now that you recapped what we're
Yes.
working on.
Yes. So last week when we were working on our format, you can see pieces are missing now. But once we got all the seams pinned and the shoulder and the side seams and the princess seams pinned in to the shape that we felt was going to work for our body, the most comfortable, the most pleasing, then we took marker or pen and traced that line on top of those pins so we knew where our stitching line is. Now we're going to have 2 lines in our new pattern, a stitching line and a cutting line. Back in the day when I started sewing, the stitching line was on all the patterns, but that was back when you had to buy one size at a time and you didn't have the option of having the nested sizes. So once they started nesting the sizes, it was more convenient, but then they had to drop off the stitching line. And so many times, especially with fitting, you need to be accurate and know where that stitching line is. So we know where our stitching line is because we've traced it on all the pins where we've pinned it together. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to do some demonstrating on what to do. So I've taken the side front and the side back apart, flattened them out. I actually pressed them, and I'll show you what to do next.
Okay, so you might be talking about this when you go over there, but I want to make sure to get to Jennifer's question because she asked it in the beginning.
Okay.
She says, regarding the sloper's shoulder seam and princess seam join, should the seam be about in the middle of the shoulder or slightly off to the side?
It should be fairly centered. Remember that line is going to go right across the apex. So don't let it get skewed. Yes, I'm sure that's what she means is as she's pinning it, you know, if you're going to take some in, try to keep it in the same place it was, but you may have to take more from one side or the other to keep it there.
To keep it centered.
Because let's say you had a narrow shoulder, so you wanted to keep this seam in place, you'd have to move this over a little bit, or you're going to have to take some of the shoulder out, whichever works depending on the arm size. So before I get you totally confused, let's go over to my sample.
Okay. All right, we'll get a little bit closer so we could see.
Okay, so here I have the side back, and as you can see, look how different my stitching line is compared to probably where it should be, which is right here. You can kind of see where I basted it together.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can see it.
You could actually see it better further away.
So that was the stitching line, but now this is my new stitching line. Over here, my stitching line stayed in the same place up near the shoulder, but it definitely goes in a little bit. And my shoulder seam changed quite a bit. here was the shoulder seam stitching line before. Here's where it is now. Same thing here, and it's at a different angle because everybody's shoulders are not square. And so the shoulders have a little more of a slope on this one. And again, you can see my stitching line. These are all stitching lines, okay? So then what I did, and this is what you do next, is you put your tissue pattern over top of the muslin you took apart, and now trace those lines onto your tissue. So now I've traced the stitching line onto the tissue, any place where it's going to be different. I didn't trace the stitching line on the Armscye because I didn't need to change the Armscye. You may, but I didn't need to. However, you'll notice that I did put the stitching line, which is a 5/8 inch seam allowance on this pattern, on here, and that's going to be used in a few minutes. So once I've traced all of these brand new stitching lines, now I have to make my cut line. My cut line is exactly the distance from the stitching line that I want for a seam allowance. So I'm keeping all these seam allowances 5/8, and I would encourage you to do the same thing, because when you get this done, you're going to stitch it back together and you're going to try it on. That's where you're going to confirm you got it right. You may have slipped, miscalculated, who knows, but it happens to me. So what you might have to do is a little tweaking of letting that seam in or out, and if you leave 5/8, you'll have room to do that. Chances are you're not going to be off more than an 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch here or there. Okay, so then we want to put our seam line on. And there's lots of different ways. I know people have tracing things where you can trace and it'll make the line. You got a wheel and it'll roll a line right next to it the distance you want. But this is what I've always used because it was cheap and easy. And that is my little 6-inch ruler, and I just put, this is my 5/8 inch line. So wherever that will line up, I'll draw my new cutting line. But because it's curved, you've got to work your way slowly up the line, always making sure that where you're drawing your line, that you are even with your stitching line. Sometimes when it's a drastic curve, you're going to only be able to do little lines at a time. But eventually you work your way right up. And as you can see here, I'm going to have to add to this pattern when I get up here because I don't have enough seam allowance. Let's see, I'm going to see it right here. I can see it better. Now it's not a lot, but it is going off of the original pattern. So you can see just a hair more. That's why I taped the whole thing on a piece of paper, because I knew that was going to happen. After I traced these lines, I knew I was going to have to go outside the pattern. So I just added a whole big piece. I also did that for the benefit of the camera, so you'd be able to see it well. The tissue on the cutting board seems to fade away, but putting it on a piece of white paper just makes it a little easier to see. So again, I traced all around here, and I didn't finish here, but I think you get the idea. Okay, so we're just going to continue, make our 5/8 inch everywhere we've created a cutting line. And for me, I'm a big lover of color coding. So I'm using a different color for my cut line than I am for my stitching line. In pattern drafting, they make the stitching line a dashed line, so you know that's where the stitches go. But it's a good idea to use a different type of line or a different color just so you don't get confused, and that's specifically because it's the first time you've done this. So we're going to do that on the front. And we'll also do the same thing on the back, and this one I've already done. So you can see that very slight change in the shoulder slope on the back. A lot different on the front. Make sure that you transfer all of your notches to your new pattern too, because sometimes they get cut off. So make sure they'll still be within your seam allowance so you'll be able to see them. All right, now we need to see if there are any questions.
I don't have a question on that, but I just wanted to let Carol know that this is not the first video of this series. So Janet has talked about all that leading up to this, and you can find it in our videos.
Yeah, that's Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Carol, we've been doing this for about a month now. So when you go to our page over on the left, if you're on a computer, go to videos, click on that, and they'll all be there right in reverse order. So you'll be able to go right to the first one and follow along with us from there. All right.
What's next? If anybody has any questions on that, feel free to put them in the comments. We can move on to the next step, but if something comes up or you think of it, we can always come back.
One of the things that I think is really fun to take a look at is, here's the shape. Let's say this is you. Here's the shape of you. Here's the shape of the pattern that you would have normally made. And then when you put it on, do you see, this is what happens to me. I have a shirt on right now that's purchased, and it's flares.
Hold on, I lost. Okay, go ahead.
Flares way out at the hip because it's expecting me to have a hip and a butt, and I don't. So I don't need it here. So if you see that drastic, stop and take a look at your body and say, well, yeah, that makes sense. But I would have had all this extra fabric here, all this extra fabric under the bust.
But somebody else might be coming off.
Right,
there. Yeah.
right. They may need to go out further. And we've already had people with that issue. They've got more of an hourglass figure. I never had an hourglass figure. So it's really fun to take a look at that and go, gee, I'm glad I didn't make that, you know, when you get to your regular patterns. You say, oh, gee, good thing I didn't make that up as is. That's why it wouldn't have fit me. So the next thing we want to do is confirm our Armscye. And this is why we didn't put our sleeve in, or maybe even cut it out yet. Because here is, our Armscye should look kind of, let's see if I can get these straight, like a horseshoe. Okay? But the key thing, and I know you've heard me say this a dozen times because it's one of the things that irks me the most about people who make patterns that don't know anything about pattern drafting. They know how to run a computer and they know how to put things online, so they think, oh, I can make a pattern and it might fit them or it might be okay with them, but it's not. There's a lot of things wrong, and one of the big mistakes they make is the Armscye. And so that back Armscye from stitch line to stitch line should be a 1/2 inch longer than the front Armscye from stitch line to stitch line. If it isn't and they're the same, your sleeve will twist toward the back. It will be unsightly, particularly if it's a longer sleeve. You'll be able to see it more, but it'll also be very uncomfortable. It'll just feel weird. So what you need to do is measure that. Okay, it's a round, a curved, and you can set your tape measure up on end, but you have to walk it very carefully. And I know I showed you that when we did the knit. Another great tool would be a curved ruler. And what's really nice about this is it's totally flexible. So I can put my 0 right on the stitch line. Let me turn this over so you can see.
Do you sell these?
No.
Okay.
You put your 0 on the stitch line, and then we're just going to measure right up that line, staying right on that line. Now, for those of you who have the video that came with kit 2 and 3, we also sell it a la carte, so if you want it and didn't get it, you can. Connie gives a lot of great tips, and one of the ones in there that she found, in the industry, they used to use a tool called a wiggly. And it was a very narrow metal ruler, only about a foot or two long. But it was not any taller than this, but just a thin piece of metal. And you could measure areas like this really fast, even faster than this, because this is a little clumsy. She found that they sell a tape measure at Home Depot that's like a keychain tape measure, and it's only 12 inches long, and it's that thin metal. So that's what she uses now and what she recommends. But that's just one of the tips from her great video. Okay, so once we've measured...
I have a couple of questions.
Oh, okay.
Sherry wants to know, the piece that has the angled shoulder slope added, does the corresponding piece that attaches to it also have to have the same slope, or could the back be different than the front?
Yes, I mean they have to balance.
Yes, they have to be the same. Yes, they don't have to be the same.
No, they don't have to be the same, because that back is coming over a rounded area and the front's coming in here like this, so they could be coming at a slightly different angle. But if you've pinned it on your shoulder and it hangs right and everything stayed straight like we talked about, then it's right. You can't say what's right for me is right for you, is right for the next person. They could be all over the place. They're not going to be a huge difference. I mean, shoulders, what do? They go up or they come at a strange angle. Some shoulders come down at a more severe angle. But you always have a more rounding back here. So the shape of this pattern piece can't be the same as this shape. As you can see, this rounds up over the back. This comes in over the hollow spot.
Okay. Let us know if you need clarification on that, Sherry. And Mary Jackson wants to know, does the 1/2 inch still apply if I have done a forward shoulder adjustment?
She's done a forward shoulder adjustment. What 1/2 inch? The 1/2 inch extra? Yes, absolutely, positively. Actually, it might be more. If you've got a forward, Mary, tell me what's the difference in yours. I'm thinking if she's got a forward, then maybe that arm size got to be even longer in the back than a 1/2 inch. Okay. Here's the thing. You've got this rounded area here. And if you don't have enough fabric here, you can't move your arm forward well. You've got to have this extra. And if you've got a plus size body, you may even need more. And that's where the sleeve fitting issue comes in. When we had this on the dress form, before I put my muslin on the dress form, I traced my 5/8 inch seam allowance on my Armscye. And I made sure that landed in the right place on my form. If it didn't, I would have changed that stitch line. So you may have had to change your stitch line, but I did not in this particular.
She says, and again, this is Mary Jackson. She
Yep.
says, I moved forward by a 1/2 and my back is now 1 inch longer than the front.
That makes sense, Mary. If you are, Mary has an issue where she's stooped more forward. So obviously she's going to need more fabric. And if you don't have it in the back, it's just going to cause that trouble of uncomfortable, either pulling across the back or just making it uncomfortable. So I think you're fine with that 1 inch. And the proof is in the pudding. Once you get that sleeve down and get it sewn in, you'll know. You'll absolutely know. Anything else, Jess?
I don't think so.
Okay, now, so many times the sleeve, not all the time, not half the time, but many times, the sleeve is now not going to be necessarily the perfect fit for your new shape. So now we have to do what's called walk the sleeve. And if you've never walked a pattern piece, this is going to be a great tip for you. Because anytime you want to make sure a piece is going to fit, or you go to put a piece in and it doesn't seem to fit, and you're thinking, is it me or is it the pattern? This is how you'll tell. You walk the pattern. So we're going to walk the sleeve in the front and in the back. So the front always has the single notch. So we're going to line it up to the cut line. And yeah, oh, I didn't realize I was going to be out a little bit further. Now, you see where my stitch lines are? Red, red, they're on top of each other. So I'm going to take something pointed. And if you have a stiletto, this is where stilettos work. And I'm going to just walk it along that line, turning until the next ones start to match up. Once they match up, you hold them in place and you just walk your pattern. You can't do it all at once, obviously, because you have opposing curves. And you walk your way up to the shoulder seam. Now I've got to change that shoulder seam because I walked this earlier. Oh no, nope, it's fine. All right, and so here's where my shoulder seam ends up after I walk it. So I'm going to mark that. Now I'm going to walk the back. Same thing. We're going to get it right evened up here. Matches here. While I'm holding that, I'll match up here and turn and match. Just keep walking. You can do this with collars on necklines. So many times people think, oh, that doesn't fit in the neckline because they're having trouble getting it in, which is usually because they're using a 5/8 inch seam allowance. But I digress. So this would be a way to make sure that your pattern pieces were drafted properly and they fit together. And then we mark that shoulder seam, okay? All right, so in this case, and I didn't expect this, but I have an awful lot of easing. That's more easing than I would like. The middle between these two lines is our sleeve cap. So this is going to change. Right now I have a notch, where's my notch? Right here. So in the beginning, that was our, that was our sleeve, shoulder seam. So here, I'm gonna measure it this way. All right, I'm gonna measure that curve, and I've got 2 1/4 inches of ease.
You measured from each point.
Yes,
okay.
Each of those shoulder points. So 2 1/4 would be 1 1/8. So it doesn't move my sleeve cap a lot, but it moves it probably close to 1/4 inch. So that is where we're going to match it up at the shoulder seam. On a commercial pattern, what they usually do is they put a dot right here. And in the industry and in all my patterns, we just put a notch up here. It's easier. It's easier to mark because you just clip it, and it's easier to match because you just match the cut edges. Okay, so for this example, and I know I showed you how to do this in the knit, I would flatten this cap a little bit. So I would take this cap, and remember we dissect it by cutting across here and then just bringing this down. Only, well, I take about 1 inch of the ease out of there. So you'd want to have, instead of 1 1/8 inches back here, I only want about 1/2 inch of ease in the back. And same in the front. You just want a little bit of ease. And the ease is going to happen between here and here, of course. But right now, this is how we determine how much is there. It doesn't mean all the ease is up here. Okay? So, otherwise, if you don't have an excess of ease up here, and you don't need to flatten your cap, then you'll just find that center point between those two shoulder seam marks that we made to find where you want to match that up right at the shoulder seam at the when you put it in. Now, you may need to heighten the cap. Let's say that you aren't getting any ease. Well, let's talk about that when we put the sleeve in. I don't want to go there yet. Okay, so questions.
Yeah. So Sherry has a follow-up question. She asked about, does the front and the back need to match? I tried making the front and back shoulder slope different, but then the side curves and notches didn't match up.
Side curves and notches. In the princess seam or the side seam, Sherry? Let's see. She tried to make, so I'm thinking she's thinking here. Sometimes, I mean, I'm not exactly sure, and I know, Sherry, I have your pictures. But sometimes you have to add and subtract to get it to lay right, but I'm lost at what she's saying. I'm trying to, so
She could,
once she sewed this together, what didn't match? If the notches didn't match, a lot of times you're going to have to recreate those notches. They won't match, but I don't know where they're not matching. They should match in here. They should match here.
all right, I'm sure she will.
Okay.
Oh, side seams. She said side seams.
Okay. So once she pulled this up, okay, then Sherry, you've gone too far because your side seams should not match. If you have to bring this up further, you have to add to this. Or if you have to bring this down, you have to subtract. But these should not be impacted from here down. So if you need more room up here for your shoulder, more or less, it happens from here to here. It should not impact, it does not impact under the arm.
Hopefully that helps, Sherry. Have you, Janet, I know we've talked so much about the Armscye. In the past videos, have you shown how to adjust the length of the Armscye? Because Becky is asking for that.
Okay, so Becky, if you have to bring your Armscye down because you did this fitting, and so let's say that, let me take another tissue that isn't, it has an Armscye. Oh, do I have enough? I don't have enough with an Armscye. Okay, so let's say that when you pinned the whole thing together, you ended up down here. Because you're going to draw your around the armhole when you're on the dress form. So in other words, like I said, I put the 5/8 on here, and it fit my dress form or body just right. But if I put it on there and it wasn't, I may have to add or subtract fabric and draw in a new seam line. So if my new seam line ended up way down here, then you use a curve if you've got one, and you just blend your new Armscye shape into, well, a little bit. You blend it in, trying to follow the same curve. You blend it right in. Now, once you've done that, of course, your seam allowance is going to be, or your cut edge is going to be in a different place. But that's because you need a lower Armscye. So absolutely, that's what you do. Okay? I hope that answered her question. I took this down today and it fell and cracked a piece off. I swear.
Oh, I wondered why it looked like that.
Yeah, I swear it was white at one time. It's so many years old. And it's just a plastic one. I mean, a really inexpensive plastic one. But these kind of curves are very helpful. Also, this hip line curve was very helpful in drawing in different lines. You can reverse it for one way and helpful, or this curve. These are the only two I own, and I use these. If one doesn't work, the other one does. All I'm trying to do is get a nice curve and following the shape that I created by pinning it onto my form.
Vicky's wondering, what do you do when your biceps are larger than your, and I assume she means Armscye.
Right, so what happens is a lot of people, as they age or gain weight, they gain extra here. And so what has to happen is this needs to be broader. Sometimes you even need a little bit up here to be broader. The first thing you do is you go and, like, see I have a multi-size pattern sleeve here. So I've got 3 sizes on here. I'm going to try and find the sleeve that fits. So it might be that I need the neck for you, for plus size oftentimes, or for larger arms, whether you're plus size or not, just go up 1 size in the sleeve and see if that, and you will know. So when you cut out your sleeve, when you're comfortable to cut out your sleeve, I want you to draw your grain line in all the way. So draw a straight grain line so that when you go to pin it into that sleeve or baste it into that Armscye, I mean, when you put it on, if that is not hanging straight, you know there's something wrong, okay? It's twisting. That means that if it twists toward the back, you don't have enough fabric in the back. So in other words, this part, where's my back? Here's this is not rounded enough. You may need to add back here. And you'll see when you get to the plus size sleeves, they're much more difference from front to back than the smaller sizes. So let me just fold this in half and I'll show you. In any pattern you get, fold that sleeve in half, and if it doesn't do this, get your money back. But you see how much more rounded, how much more you need in the back than you need in the front. And that continues to expand as the sizes get bigger. So try moving up a size in the sleeve, and that may make all the difference. Okay, another thing you'll notice when you go to put that sleeve in is whether you need more height. And I know Mary Jackson, I think it was Mary, it's a tall person, who needed to do that. And you'll know when you put it on, it'll be pitching upward. It'll do something like that. Okay, so it'll pitch up. Well, that's because you don't have enough in here. So then you're going to split this and give it a little more room. Remember, whenever you're making these adjustments, make one at a time. Don't go off and say, oh, I need to flatten the sleeve cap and I need to lower the Armscye and I need to do. No. One at a time and make sure everything's sitting and hanging right. Then that's why we do the sleeve last.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right, is that no more question?
Oh, sure. This just in. Evelyn says you showed how to measure for a sleeve cap adjustment, but did not show how to actually remove and where to remove it from.
Yeah, it's in the knit. It's in the knit videos.
Oh, okay. From when we did the sloper from the knit. The knit sloper.
Yeah, you're going to cut it above the notches. You're going to make sure the line is perpendicular to your grain line. And you're just going to ease it down a little bit. So you'll cut it completely off. Bam, off. And then you move this down.
And Evelyn, I know you're here a lot, but that's the segment that we did before this one. So look in like February.
And so it'll end up looking something like this. And then, as you'll see in the video, you'll blend this line up and blend this line up so the sleeve. Then you'll have to walk it again and make sure, maybe you want to use repositionable tape when you do this, because what you'll do is you won't have a fold here, you'll have it cut. So you move it down 1/4 of an inch and then test it. Oh, that's not enough. So now move it down 1/2. Too much. Then go back to 3/8. And then you'll have it just right. So you may have to fiddle with it a little bit.
She says, thank you, got it.
All right, good. Good. And we're not going anywhere, so keep working on these things.
Knock on wood.
What?
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Well, yeah, we don't have any choice. We're not going anywhere. But anyway, we'll be here for you. If you're watching this 6 months from now, we're going to be here for you. So all you have to do, like I said, is send in your questions. It's best if you send them with a picture, because I may send, my response might be, please send me a picture. So often when you're trying to describe something, just the slightest little nuance can make it mean something entirely different. So when I have a picture, I feel really confident in the advice I can give you. And I know we've had several questions about Swayback. So the one thing that you are going to need to probably do is add to your princess seams in the back and then continue to pin them till they fit the shape. Because all it is, that's the beauty of it for a Swayback, is they've got that curve that goes in their back and comes back out over their butt. So it's like an S shape. Well, you can do that by pinning it in, but if you don't have enough fabric to get back up over, then you'll need to add to that. So add to your princess seams from below the shoulder blade or so on both sides, and then pin them into place. I see some Swaybacks and it's getting caught up right here and creating a fold. It's because there's not enough width in one place and too much in another. I'm pointing at my back like anybody could see me.
We get it.
Okay. All right. Well, did I cover everything I was going to cover today? I did.
Good.
I do want to just remind you, if you haven't had the opportunity to get the kits are still available. Kit 1, 2, and 3. They come with muslin. Some of them come with pattern paper. They all come with the pattern, but Kit 2 and 3 come with the DVD. Now, if you bought Kit 1 or you just bought the pattern because you didn't need the other stuff, but now you're thinking, I need the DVD, it's available. And if you bought Kit 1 and didn't get the DVD and now you want it, we will give you the rate that is just the difference. So you're not paying the full price. You just have to write Brenda or I and tell us, hey, I bought Kit 1, but now I want the DVD. We did that for a couple people last week. And we'll definitely not charge you the full price. Okay, I think I'm done over here.
Okay.
All right.
All right. And let's do this. Woo, there we go. Brenda the Spenda is asking, but I have a feeling she knows the answer.
What is?
Did you put the new fabrics out?
I'm sorry, Brenda, but life is just not as easy as it used to be. And I was kind of complaining today to anybody who would listen, which was pretty much nobody, that, you know, I have several projects in the works and I'd like to get them all up and out, but I've got a new pattern that we haven't been able to get finished, and I've got all these fabrics I'd like to show you. And I don't want to show you yet because then you're going to, I want to buy it and I don't have it on the website yet. So next week, God willing, the creek doesn't rise.
Well, now we're walking the gray area of our stay-at-home order.
Is that are you trying to insinuate?
Like I have any room to talk. like I have any room to talk. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some fabrics up and be able to show you. I haven't seen them either, Brenda, if that makes you feel better. Will they be good for this pattern?
Well, this isn't a pattern.
I mean, this would for a blouse. It's blouse material.
I have
knit?
some-
Give them something.
Oh, they're all wovens.
Okay.
No knits. Although I'm going to order some more knits. But my guy in New York finally got back to work, but he doesn't have what I need. So anyway, I'm going to get some knits in here. Everything that I got from Japan is woven, and there's some blouse shirting weights, and then there's also some jacket weights for like the Jacket Express. So many times from that class I taught on Craftsy, the Jacket Express class, people wanted the fabrics that I had made mine out of. And of course, they retire these fabrics really fast, the Japanese. We used to do that in the US too. You'd see something this season, you come around to the same season next year and it didn't have it anymore. That's not the case anymore here, but I guess it still is in Japan because I can't buy it the following year. If you like it, you gotta buy it now. So anyways, I did get some really great fabrics that would work wonderful for the Jacket Express. And yeah, so I'll get them up next week, I promise. Now I have to, because I promised. Somebody come over and take care of my grandkids for me.
Okay, so that's the answer on the fabric, and that's why I tell her not to tell.
I was hoping it would have pushed me to do it, but it didn't.
It just made you feel worse. Brenda, no, we're not super far, but we are not affected by the flooding. If anybody has heard about that, hopefully nobody.
We'll show them where we are.
But I don't know, is it backwards? I don't know.
If you go up, yeah, that's correct for them. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. We live here. Midland is here.
Yes. So, our hearts go out to them for sure. And it's rough times here in Michigan.
I will tell you, there was one elderly lady, and they filmed her on TV. She had her mask down because she was talking on the phone, and she said, well, first the COVID virus came, COVID-19 or whatever. Then the floods. I'm just waiting for the locusts. You just feel like all those poor people had to be immediately evacuated from their homes. So it was quite a blow for them, and our hearts go out to them. And thank you for asking. We appreciate it.
So we're hanging in there. We're doing what we can, and hopefully everybody out there is doing well.
Yeah, our hearts go out to everybody, and especially anyone who has been adversely affected by what we're going through. So, but let's keep sewing. Let's keep sewing.
Let's keep sewing.
Yeah,
It keeps our
stuck in a house. So learn something new.
yes. And Carlene, I'm not really sure what you mean about our video being backwards again. This is how we always film it. I know sometimes like words and stuff might be backwards. If anything is very important for you to see, we will flip it around. When you're doing a video like this, it's very distracting and hard if it's backwards. So like when Janet's trying to give instruction and making eye contact with you, I don't know if it's eye contact, but trying through the video,
I'm moving my right hand, but it looks like I'm moving my left hand, and we have a really hard time. We're just doing the best we can.
But this is how we always film our videos. Again, if there's ever anything important that you need to see the other way, I will absolutely flip it around for you.
Yeah.
Ethel, we do not have very much information on the situation with Craftsy right now. We know the same as you. So if we get anything,
Anybody who has Craftsy or Blueprint classes, just go to the website. On the home page is a letter written.
Yeah.
It just says letter, read this. Click on that. It's written by the CEO, John Levisay, and he wrote the same thing to the consumers he wrote to the instructors. We are all in the dark. I know John Levisay to be the guy that started the company, a wonderful guy, and I think he will do everything he can to help us. He does not own the company anymore. NBC Universal owns the company, so it's entirely up to them what's going to happen to all of our classes. And I have quite a few classes that I like to visit. Bread making is my
yes,
favorite.
we've all shared our non-sewing favorite
Yeah.
videos here. If we happen to get some important news, we will share that with you for Janet's classes on there. But as of right now, we don't know really anything more than you do.
Mhm.
So we all just wait. I feel like that's like our lives now.
Yeah,
We just wait.
just wait. But I'm sure it'll work out. I mean,
We always have Tuesdays at 2.
Yep, and we're going to continue to produce classes. And now that Craftsy will eventually go away, we'll be looking into options to provide those similar type of classes, especially if ours go away. We have 5 on there. If those all go away, and I'm always referring people to them, we're going to need to come up with some kind of
Yeah.
alternative. So we'll see what happens in the next 2 or 3 months.
All right. Well, that's what we have for today. So what will we be talking about? We'll be come back Tuesday.
You won't be here.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
We just wait. But on the next Tuesdays at 2, where will we be going with this
we
segment?
will be going to the commercial pattern. So we'll be showing you how to take your finished sloper and use it on a commercial pattern. And I will also be happy to send you in the directions for those who want to continue to draft and design and make their own patterns. I will be more than happy to continue to give you information about that. But we'll do the sloper on top of a commercial pattern and show you how to line it up and how to know where to make the necessary adjustments. And then you'll be ready to go on that aspect. And then those who want to design and things, will give you some tips and directions and books or things that you might want to use to go further with your designing.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for Tuesdays at 2 on Wednesday. We're just rolling with the punches, and we appreciate you doing the same. And hopefully nothing stands in the way of being back on Tuesday next week.
That's right. So, and the more I thought about Sherry's, where she said it didn't line up on the underarm.
Because it's been in there, Sherry. It's rolling around this whole time.
Yep. Well, you keep those together, and then it's likely that you just needed a little more fabric on the back shoulder seam. You might need to add a little. That's what pulled that up and caused the whole thing to be askew. I'll bet you it's the back, Sherry. I know sometimes you guys ask me questions and I'm like, and 2 hours later I go, oh!
The middle of the night.
Yeah. Sometimes they're kind of stumpers for me.
Okay, well, we will see you next week.
Yeah. Just let us know if you have any questions. We're shipping every day now, or almost every day. And again, we have everything in that you need for a kit to follow along with this process. And once and for all, get your garments to fit before you have to cut them out. So much more fun to sew that way.
It's a lot of, I don't want to make it sound bad, like a lot of work on this end. But it is, but then smooth sailing.
Exactly.
it's this little bit of work while we're all penned in anyway and have some extra time, so it's perfect. But even
We planned it that way.
yeah, we planned it. But even in any other times, it's worth the effort to get it so that you know it's going to fit. Because so many times, and I think you'll recognize this when you get your sloper done, there are areas that you can't fix after you've cut it out. If that arm,
Like if you needed to add.
or if your armhole's too low, you can't recut that. You have to have a whole new couple of yards of fabric to cut a whole new front because your arm size too deep. So it just
Or you could have a nice design element of a vent.
a vent or a gusset.
Don't
or,
do that.
Yeah.
That was not official.
Don't.
No. All right,
All
so
right.
we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your week. Bye, everybody.